Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. This is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. Welcome. We're here to talk about setting up employees in our new Church Windows Payroll version 24. So here we are again. We're in our version 24, 22, which we're working on now to make release ready. Again, folks, no firm release date on the version 24 yet. We're working on it as quickly as humanly possible. There is no handout for today's event. I'm sorry, let me make sure that I follow up with that. That was the other thing. There's no printed material for today's event. It's all the video. So when we dive in and we open up our payroll, again, as we've been stating, that it looks very similar to our image maps as they pertain to other portions of Church Windows. Frequently used functions in the center and the block in the middle, but the full functionality listed across the top left. We're going to be talking about employees/contractors exclusively in the center today, or by going up to data setup and employees/contractors in the upper left-hand corner. Again, typically the different ways to get to the same windows, either in the center or in the upper left. So if I click on employees contractors, it's now going to open up our essentially what is in our current version of payroll, our employee file. Okay. We just now call it employees/contractors, but it's for all intents and purposes the employee file. Okay. By default, the software does have under show both employees and contractors checked. At this time, I'm not aware of a way to set that as the default. But if I don't want to see, say, my employees or my contractors, I simply uncheck, say, contractors, and I'm now showing just my employees. If I do the opposite and uncheck employees and check contractors, it will detail and show just my contractors, okay? But we're going to be working with exclusively pretty much with employees today, not contractors. You can filter by departments if you use them. So, if I want to see those that are simply, labeled, say, maybe administration, unchecking everybody else and show selected, then it shows the names that I filtered. And again, you can choose more than one if you wish. And I can choose to check all if I want, and all of them, and choosing whichever ones you want to see. You can also search using the Payee menu here in the upper right-hand corner to search for an employee either by typing their name. So there I am. I type in Will, and it brings up Jerry Williams. Either way, so again, enhanced search as much as we have in the accounting and the membership. Anytime you see those menus, you have the enhanced search, okay? So here's kind of the meat and potatoes of the employee file, folks. And I'm sorry, I don't have any drawing tools in the Demio to kind of draw your focus. But the crux of the employee file is right here below the employee name and those arrows, left and right arrows here, where you see the various tabs. Basically, what's revealed is always based on whether you're on the tab here. And I don't know if folks can see it. It may be kind of small for folks, but you've got the first tab, which opens by default, called HR, Human Resources, then our Tax tab, and our Totals tab. And when you click on each one of these tabs, that opens up a series of tabs across the top. So when I'm on HR, it opens General, Pay Rates and Hours, Allowances, Deductions, Employment, and Direct Deposit. Okay. If I click on Tax, it shows the Federal tab, State tab, Local, Miscellaneous Taxes. And we've tried to color code those with those different colors, blue, or I guess, I don't know what you call that, maybe purple, but blue, yellow, and green. So we've tried to maintain those other same colors across the top of each one of those tabs, okay? So when I click on the HR, and now we're going to dive in and talk a little bit in detail about each one of these tabs here, is, well, let's go ahead and add somebody. So I've got Jerry because he's the one that I had clicked on before, but if I go back, or I go all the way back to the beginning, it shows my senior pastor, Pastor Larry Higgins here, okay? To add an employee contractor, we simply click Add Employee Contractor. It brings up a menu and says, what do you want to add, employee or independent contractor? We're going to choose employee. Then I'm going to be typing in my employee name. So then I'm going to do Wile E. Coyote. And we're going to click down here. And if I haven't a social security number, you're definitely going to need that for when you want to print their, say, W-2 forms, at the end of the year. So, if you have the Social Security number, we strongly advise adding it, of course. And then under our addresses, much like we see in our membership module, we have to click the plus sign. So then we would go, 123 Acme Avenue, and we'll do Columbus or zip code 43222. And the software does typically know based on the zip code that you're entering what city it is. So country, if I'm not mistaken, is optional and not required, but I can choose in this case USA, or you click on the little ellipsis button and it allows you to edit or add countries. But if we look at here, right here, cities, those are the ones that we have there built in. But I think it will find them, if you enter a zip code that it's unfamiliar with, and it will add them to the list. You don't have to search for it each time. It will find it, okay? So once you've got it in this list of cities to maintain, you just start typing it. You won't have to go in and have the software find it again. But notice here, zip codes, So I think if I was like 86434, so if I close out of that and go here to 86434 and I tab over, oh, I thought it was going to change that, but I think that's, what is it, like Peach City in Arizona or something. So anyway, once I've gotten the information entered for the employee, then I would simply click OK, and it's now added my new employee to my employee list. Yes, I still have to go into each one of these other tabs and complete them, okay? My save is lit up here in the upper right corner. I have to click on that. But I can, over on the right-hand side, we've got a job title I can enter. Is the employee full-time? If they're not, I'm not going to check that. If they are, I'll check it. And are they going to consent? Do they want to consent to receiving an electronic W-2? I believe, folks, and I'm not entirely sure about this yet because we're still writing this in here, is I believe this has to do with the new Atrix association that we're going to have in payroll, that will allow Atrix to be able to email or send your employees electronic tax documents, in this case W-2. All of this stuff right now is optional. Birth date, default. Do I want to put a default memo line or message on the memo line of their check each time? Emergency contact. So let's say we're going to put in Roadrunner, and I can put in the phone number for them. And then now again, I can click save. Notice save is still lit up, but I don't have to click on that until I actually am finished. Now I'm going to jump over to my pay hours and rates and hours tab. You have to choose the pay type. Are they hourly or salaried? How often are they paid? Weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-monthly? And one of the things that we want to point out here on this today is, notice it's saying checking account. And we're going to see that here, okay, is that there is now no separate screen for linking your employees to the accounts in accounting. It all occurs right here in the employee file, in the employee's contractor file, okay? So I have it set up as my default Huntington Bank checking. And we notice here pay hours and rates for pay period. So here we're going to say, okay, Wiley is hourly and he's paid semi-monthly twice a year, okay? Now I come down here to my standard hours, and here I can choose a pay label, or as we had alluded to in one of the earlier webinars was, folks, you're not locked into the pay labels that we create. Yes, for consistency, you do want to make sure that you're using the same ones for employees if they are that. But if I needed to set up a new pay label for an employee, I can simply click on the little, +/- there, and it opens up and allows me to add new pay labels, okay, for either regular pay or standard pay rates, or for paid time off, okay? We're not going to do that. We're going to choose one of our standard ones here, the ones that we've got created. I can set a default number of hours, so we're going to say that Wiley is going to be working, 20 hours per week, per 2 weeks or half month, and we're going to say he's making $15 an hour, okay? Over here now, I can go over and choose, say, my housing allowance, or my expense account, thinking of ministers here. So let's say he's going to be part-time custodian, and over here I can type in employer medical insurance. Nope, that's not it. FICA. Let's try something different here. Sorry. FICA. church portion of FICA Medicare. There we go. So again, all occurring right here, folks, okay? Allowances. If this person were a minister, and again, I'm going to remind you that back here under the general tab, if Wile E. Coyote were a minister, I would check that box, okay? But he's not. He's a layperson. Again, allowances, monies that are added to a person's check that is separate from regular base pay. Commonly for ministers would be things like housing allowance or mileage reimbursement or anything that you're paid as part of the compensation above and beyond regular pay. And it would be as simple as coming in here, choosing whatever the allowance is, okay, and then entering the frequency and the amount based on that. And similarly for deductions. So if we're going to say that Wile E. is now going to be contributing to our dental, contributing to dental insurance, it says what day will it start being used in calculations, and it can say 1/1 of 2022. I can choose any date I want. We can say today, since maybe he's starting with us now, and I can enter the amount or the percent that will be deducted from his paycheck each pay period, okay? And again, I can go over here and I have to choose the account. Which account is it going to go into when that's deducted, okay? So here we would have to choose, which account is going to wind up crediting in accounting. So let's just choose one, pension payable. Sorry, not dental insurance. Let's choose pension instead. Pension, 403B. Yeah, that's fine. Today, 1/1/1 doesn't matter as long as it's valid for their first pay. Employment, per what we had discussed before. Is there information about a hire date, termination date? You can now enter employment notes. You can notate pay rate changes. So if Wiley in 6 months from now earned a raise and we decided to pay him more money, it will record when the pay rate change occurred, okay? More power and more ability in the software. Finally, direct deposit. If you want to use direct deposit, you have to check it and you have to enter the appropriate bank account routing number and the appropriate information. Reminder, for the first time, we do now have the ability to have a direct deposit file be deposited to 2 accounts for an employee. Hence why we have the 2 tabs, account 1 and account 2. Okay? So you enter that information there and you can have it deposit to a checking or savings or checking, savings, whatever you choose or they want you to choose. Okay? All right, I've entered a fair amount of information. We're going to go ahead and click Save here. It's now requiring that if I check Use Direct Deposit, I have to enter that account number information. He does not want direct deposit. We're going to uncheck that. Now we'll click Save. It's now saved our work for Wiley. Let's go back to taxes. So here on our, folks, none of this stuff here is drastically different than the one that the payroll that you're currently working with. I remind folks, we are trying to remind you that we're doing as little as possible to kind of throw all kinds of new stuff at you. Yes, the screens look slightly different, but they do virtually exactly the same thing that your payroll software does currently. In fact, all of these settings are going to migrate as part of the migration and conversion process into the new payroll. So once you convert it, you'll come in here and we're going to recommend that you check that. That's one of the events that was the one that was postponed that we're going to talk about that on Wednesday next week is the installation, the conversion, and then the security functions in the new payroll as well. But again, very similar. Filing status, single, married, head of household. Are they hired 2020 or later for the new W-4? If so, what information is being entered? Do they want additional amount or percent to be withheld? Is there a retirement plan? Are they withholding based on using tax tables? And again, we've set up our federal 941 taxes payable liability. Folks, this is remarkably similar to the current payroll, okay? Again, state tax. You would choose the default withholding state for that employee. And of course, depending on your state, if you have state tax, you'll want to pay attention to the appropriate filing status. In Ohio, we have one called all, but in other states, I think Connecticut has like 5 or 6. Okay, and then every state is different. And again, we have it set up to go into our state taxes payable. Are there exemptions? Local taxes. Okay, so if Wiley is living here in Columbus and we're going to go, yeah, we're going to go, okay, Columbus tax right there, and we're going to say it's good as of today or 1/1 of 2022. It's based on a particular setup of the local taxes. We're going to come back to that on a different event next week, but it's set up based on a percentage. We're done. Finally, and again, we're not going to go into too much detail on this, is miscellaneous tax. Now, we don't really have anything on here today for this, but more and more states are coming up with different kinds of taxes that would not be considered a standard state, income tax per se, but something else. I'm just trying to think of an example here. Family medical leave, or things like that. Just something where can't be categorized as necessarily a state tax. It is literally a miscellaneous tax. Okay. And again, you can click on add one by simply clicking on the plus sign and setting one up. But again, we're going to go into detail in that event next week. So I'm going to save my changes for Wiley. And finally, with just a couple minutes left, when we go to our totals tab, again, we've got the 3 different green colored tabs, W-2 941 totals. Let me go to an employee where I think I've got somebody here, where I've got something for somebody. Yeah, here we go. So we're back under our Pastor Larry. So when we go to our totals tab, as we had seen last week, here's 2022. So quarter 1 taxable, quarter 1 withheld, Q2 taxable, Q1 again, lots more information here, folks, than we ever had before. And it shows each one of basically their W-2 totals as they're going to be reflected. Federal wages, Social Security, Medicare, state and local. He's a minister, so there aren't any Medicare or Social Security wages. If we go to another layperson like Jimmy Hilliard, he definitely does have Social Security and Medicare and amounts withheld. So it does show year-to-date taxable. So this information is going to correspond with information as it appears on your, say, W-2s, or collectively for your information for your for all of the employees and their taxable totals. Pay dates. When was the employee paid? Okay. I want to just remind you that based on the event last week, notice all of our prior years are here. We've got lots of data in here, folks. I've got payroll data dating back to 2006. Okay. So right here, it shows all the totals that I had entered for an employee dating back that far. Okay. And pay dates similarly. So here's my 2022 pay dates. And so all of my payroll years and pay dates for prior years are all listed right here, all available right at your fingertips. Don't have to change a year. Don't have to do anything. It's all right here. And finally, paid time off totals. So all I have here is something set up for, say, 2022. I don't have anything for prior years, but it would, I believe, if they were in there. Okay. If there were other years where that occurred for. Okay. Lots and lots of flexibility here, folks, in terms of how this works. Again, if we go back to our senior pastor, Larry, notice here again, we've got the minister box checked. Social Security and Medicare are not in play, either from the earnings side or from the amount withheld. That is, again, one of the things about Church Windows Payroll that makes it unique, that in addition to lay staff, it supports payroll for our pastors perfectly with regards to that. Okay. So a quick tour around our employees. And honestly, folks, the contractors are not that much different. Again, very similar. The only difference is unless you're backing up things like federal withholding, there's no taxes involved in terms of contractors. Okay. We're just paying them. We're sending them a 1099 at year's end, but it literally is added in exactly the same way and linked to the appropriate accounts in accounting as needed. Okay. Let's see here. Pay hours and rates. Yeah, so right here is lawn service, grounds, and maintenance right there. So it's all in one place, a lot more cleaner and more efficient in terms of that. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave the topic there for today.